Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time checking us out, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 5 features that if you're going to build a custom home, you definitely have to consider. Alright, like I said, today we're going to talk about those 5 features. There's a lot more obviously, but if you're going to build a custom home, you got to consider these 5 things as you're going through that design phase and see if you want them in your house. Before we jump into that, real quick, let me just remind everybody, our channel is all about everything custom home building. The financing, the building, the planning, design, everything about it. So if you're maybe going down that path of custom home building, if you have any questions whatsoever, please take the time, reach out to us, call, text, email, whatever we can do to help out. That's certainly what we want to do. And if you are here in the state of Colorado, we'd love the opportunity to chat with you and see if we may be a good builder fit for you. All right, so those 5 things. Number 1, and I gotta say, first of all, a lot of these are from my personal experience. I just recently went through the custom build process myself. So personal experience, maybe some regrets that I have and some good decisions that I'm happy I made, but then also working with a lot of clients over the years that are building custom homes. So number 1, the first thing I would say is a heated garage. So no matter what size your garage is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 car, whatever it is, just being able to go outside in the morning, go out into the garage, start your car up. It's a dead of winter and it's just as warm as what it is inside the house or maybe close to it. It's a huge game changer. We decided to do that in our personal house and I couldn't be happier with it. It's typically a separate unit. So if you want to take the temperature down a whole bunch, you can keep it, just above freezing. You can bump it up if you want it to be, like I usually have ours set around 60 degrees, but just having that heated garage. So whether it's just to have a nice warm car to wake up to in the morning whenever you're headed off to work, or maybe if you want to go out and maybe you have a little workshop set up in the garage, you just want a nice place to work. A heated garage is a huge game changer in my opinion. So number 1 is definitely a heated garage. And like I said, that can typically be separate from your main house system. A lot of the times it's just kind of a ceiling mount, natural gas fired heater that heats just the garage on a separate thermostat. So super convenient, a lot of pros to it. And honestly, the cost and the big scope of things, it's really not that much to have that heated garage space. So definitely consider that one. It's one of those items that's a whole lot easier to do whenever you're building versus trying to retrofit the house after the fact. All right, so heated garage. Number 2, I would say for me, was under porch storage. And let me kind of define what that is a little bit. It could be different in different parts of the country. So, we really wanted, in our home, a nice big concrete front porch. I'm not really the biggest fan of decks. If done right, they can look really awesome, but I just really like concrete stone porches. So you typically have some type of entryway into the house, some kind of small, large, covered front porch area that a lot of the times on the front of the house is concrete. So it's becoming fairly common, or I guess I should say fairly popular, to excavate the foundation so that that area directly underneath the front porch is all open and there's actually a foundation wall that goes underneath that. So what it really looks like is, if you can imagine, you go in from the basement and there's a door that you open in the basement and it enters into a room that's directly underneath that poured porch up above it, and it's all concrete walls. So it's all foundation walls. So you essentially create a room that all 4 walls are concrete foundation, and then the ceiling is concrete because you've poured that concrete porch right on top of that framing. Of course, it's, reinforced framing to a certain code that the engineer figures out to make sure that everything's nice and structurally sound, but it creates a room that is kind of extra bonus space that normally would just be backfilled with dirt and the porch would be poured right on top of that. There's a little bit of extra cost to it, but it gives you a lot of options. So our clients, mostly what we see are people use that for, there's really kind of 2 main options, and it's usually some type of high value items that they might have that they want to store in a more secure place. And then also a lot of folks are wine connoisseurs and they want a nice wine room that's kind of naturally temperature controlled. So like I said, it's all concrete, top, bottom, super secure, super safe. We put a nice exterior door in there. Sometimes people have, multiple exits in and out of that space. And it does add a little bit of cost, as you can imagine, with just the extra foundation and excavation. I think just to give a point of reference, I think the one that we have on our house is maybe about 8 feet by, gosh, I think it's about 50 feet maybe. And I think that added about maybe $10,000 to $15,000 to the overall build. So it was a little bit of a tough decision for us, but after we've done it, I've recommended it to a lot of clients and a lot of folks have decided to go that route. So under porch storage for whatever the use might be. You could just use it for general storage if you want to. It doesn't have to be anything real special, but just a good use of extra space that normally would just be backfilled. So you get some extra square footage at not a super high cost, and there's a lot of different things you can do with it. So the under the front porch storage, concrete storage area, that would be my number 2. Definitely consider it whenever you're doing your custom home. The third thing is, I call it a communications closet. I don't really know what the official term for this would be, but this was a big thing for myself, and a lot of our clients have wanted to do the same thing. And essentially, you know, a lot of our electronics nowadays, like remote controls, they don't have to be direct line of sight. They're, I guess it's radio frequency, so they don't have to be direct line of sight. So you can have, say, like your cable TV box or your Apple TV or your DVD player, whatever it might be. You could have those pieces of equipment in a separate room in the house, and you could have a pipe run over to where the TV area is. So what this really does, it alleviates you from having to put all of your components either on a TV stand or in like a little cubby kind of next to the TV. So what we do is we run a conduit pipe, a pretty large conduit pipe from behind wherever the TV is going to go. Typically goes in the wall, up into the attic space, and then over, and then back down into a closet. A lot of the times we'll put it next to the coat closet because that's usually fairly close to where the TV area is going to be. But then we wire it so that you can put all of your components over there. So like I said, your Apple TV, your DVD player, your cable box, whatever components you have, you can put in that room. All of your wires are hidden. All your HDMI cables run through the wall and the conduit, but your remote controls still work for those components. So it gives you a super, super clean look. And we always say, you know, if nothing else, even if you decide not to use it for that purpose, all you've really done is you've just added another storage space, another closet. Maybe it becomes a broom closet or something instead of a comms closet. But that communications closet, we found a lot of people really, really like that just because it makes your main living room area, wherever you have your TV set up, your entertainment area, it makes it super, super clean. You don't have all those components sitting out and wires running everywhere. Everything's tucked nice behind the wall or in that conduit going over to the communications closet. So number 3, definitely think about that communications closet. Try to work it into the footprint of the main level of the house or wherever your main entertainment area is. All right, number 4, I would say number 4 would be a backup generator. Now this one's kind of dependent on where you live though. If you're building a nice custom home, but you're on a city lot where it's, you know, municipal power, you're tied into the grid, if you will, very stably, maybe you don't need a backup generator. A lot of custom homes that we do here in Colorado, you can see we're kind of out in, we're out in the Black Forest area right now. There's actually a couple homes we're building back here that it was just really noisy on site today, so I thought I'd step away a little bit, so we're kind of across a little open space. But, you know, if you're out in an area like this, you might kind of think, man, I'm not really sure, either the power might go out for a little bit, and because it's a little bit more rural area, it may take a little bit longer for the power to get back up and running. And, you know, a lot of times people like that backup generator, sometimes it'll tie into the natural gas in the house. Sometimes people have a separate propane tank that will bury to run that backup generator. But, you know, there's a lot of brands out there. Generac is a really popular brand you can look into. But a nice thing about them is our electricians wire everything in during the build so that it's an auto switch setup. So if the power goes out, somehow through black magic, it senses it and it knows it. So it fires the generator up and it starts running. Some of them are large enough they can run your whole house. Some folks will do a little bit smaller system where it'll run, you know, kind of the main things they need, like refrigerator, furnace, lights in the house, things of that nature. But that backup generator, it's one of those items, if you do it at the beginning of a build, the extra cost isn't too prohibitive. I mean, the generators do have a cost to it, you know, maybe depending on size, gosh, maybe $10,000 or so to get it all hooked up, and then maybe some extra electrical charge. But in the big scheme of the custom home, especially if you're in a rural area, a lot of the times it can make a lot of sense just to have that peace of mind that if the power does go out, and especially in a big storm, it's going to be a little while till they get you back up and running, that at least you have kind of the basic necessities taken care of. Like I said, your furnace is going to run, your refrigerator is going to run, and you'll be able to have some lights on in the house, at least those basic things. So a backup generator is definitely something that I would consider. And full disclosure, I got to say, I didn't think about it when we built our house, and man, I definitely regret it. Fortunately, we haven't had any time periods when the power's been out for maybe a day or so. So not optimal, but not the end of the world either. But if I had it to do over again, I would definitely do a backup generator, because I'll tell you what, I'm thinking about it now and kind of trying to plan it out. And the cost is a lot more now than what it would have been whenever I built. And it just doesn't look quite as clean, because now you've either got to tear some drywall out or you got to run some conduit, you know, through the garage or whatever the case might be. So definitely one of those things that's a lot easier to do when you first build than after the fact. So number 4, backup generator, especially if you're in a more rural area. All right, number 5. This is one that really gets me. I didn't do this, and it was a cost prohibitive item at the time that I built. So it's not cheap, I'll say that to begin with, but it's radiant heating. So most of us, when we think about heating our home in the wintertime, we think of a forced air furnace. So you have a furnace in the basement typically, and it's got a blower motor on it. It just runs, usually natural gas or propane is what the heat source is. And it's got a blower motor that just blows the hot air through the house, through your vents in the floor typically. Not the most efficient, although they have become much more efficient than what they were, but still typically not the most efficient type of heat source. But it's definitely the most cost-effective and popular heat source, at least here in Colorado, and I believe most parts of the country. So what radiant heat is, it's essentially just water lines that run all underneath the flooring of the house, however many levels of the house, basement, main level, upper level if you have it. Water lines run underneath the floor in the framing system, and they'll all go back to a main mechanical room where typically your furnace would be at. But instead of a furnace, there's a boiler. So it's a hot water boiler, and these things have gotten super efficient. So, they don't take up a ton of space. They're pretty small and compact. But all it does is it's just taking the water in the system and it's running it, cycling it through the boiler so the hot water is continually circulating through those lines in the floor system. Super, super efficient. And the thing there's a couple things I like best about it. Number one is there's no noise. Maybe it's a personal pet peeve, but you're watching TV and then the furnace kicks on. You got to turn it up a little bit because you can't quite hear it anymore. So with radiant heat, you have no noise whatsoever. There's no blower motor making the noise, no air rushing out of the vents. It's just hot water going through those lines in the floor system. So super nice from just the no noise, no air blowing around factor. The other thing that people really like, and I would say probably like the most about it, is just the consistent heating. All of us that have forced air heat know that even if you have 2 furnaces in your house, you still have hot and cold spots. You gotta adjust the floor vents a little bit, close them here, open them there, try to kind of even out that heat throughout the house. But no matter how hard you try, you always have hot and cold spots. With radiant heating, man, it really solves this problem. It keeps a nice, really, really consistent heat throughout the house. They'll typically space the water lines or maybe a little bit closer as you get closer to the exterior walls of the house. They'll be farther apart in the interior, but you get a nice, even, consistent heating. I guess maybe a little bit of a negative is you can't adjust the temperature rapidly. So you can turn the thermostat down, but it takes a little while because that radiant heat essentially kind of heats all the items in the house as well. So it just takes a little while for that heat to dissipate, for the temperature to come down, and to heat things up quickly. It takes a little bit of time. So typically, you don't have the settings where you might have your day and night setting like you do on your forced air furnace. You typically just have a setting that you keep it at consistently, whatever time of the year it is. So, man, radiant heating, that's one that I didn't do. For our house, it was going to be about a $40,000 difference. So that was just a little bit more than what we wanted to spend at the time, but definitely not something you can go back and retrofit easily. I don't even really know. It wouldn't be cost effective to try to retrofit it after the fact. So if you like that nice consistent heat, and you don't want the noise of the air blower system, then man, radiant heating, it is really, really nice. And that's the number one regret I have with our personal house, is that I didn't do radiant heating. Wish I would have figured out a way to do that. So that's number 5, radiant heating. And I've got a bonus one for everybody here, just because it's just more, we hear more clients ask about it, and it's EV or electric vehicle hookup. So in the garage, figuring it into your electrical panel of how many EVs you may potentially have, and then running those lines and putting the plugs in during the build so that it's, all the wires are behind the drywall. You don't see any conduit running across the top of the ceiling or anything. I think that's going to become a lot more popular. Like I said, we've had a lot more clients ask about it recently, and I think that trend's only going to continue. So I think that helps you out on the resale side too, honestly. I think that's going to be a feature that more and more people are going to like. So even if it's not going to be your forever home, but it's a home you may potentially sell in the future, I think that's going to be a big selling point for people, so they don't have to worry about it later. So electric vehicle hookups, definitely something to think about. And if you do it during the build, when your electrician's there on site anyway, he's essentially just running an extra circuit. So you're kind of paying a little bit of labor and then a little bit of material, but nothing like it would be trying to do it after the fact, trying to retrofit it. So yeah, EV plugs, that's definitely one I'd consider too. So like I said, those are 5 things that I would really consider if I was, 5 features that I would consider if I was going to build a custom home right now. There's a lot of stuff to think about, but these are just 5 that I really think you should take a hard look at. So heated garage, the under the porch storage, communications closet, the radiant heating, a backup generator, and then that bonus one we talked about was the electric vehicle plug. So Take time, consider those 5 things. And as always, man, if you guys have any questions whatsoever about any piece of the custom home building process, from financing, design, plan, actual construction, things to consider, whatever it is, definitely please take the time, reach out to us, call, text, email. And hey, if this is good information for you, take the time, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get new content out to you every day, just to make sure that if you're thinking about going down the road of custom home building, you have all the information you need.